Wildcard playoff. Colts Bills. Going through what y'all need to know to make some money on this bitch. So, hey, it's playoff time. This is the fun stuff. We got a real good first one too here. Colts Bills. I'm gonna be going real in depth. That's what I want to do now. I got all the time with the playoffs. Don't have to worry about 16 games a week anymore, and we can actually have some fun and look at what's going on here. So first, we're gonna be doing the Colts offense. They're the away team. Weather wise, there's a light chance of snow. Not really worried. And it's not supposed to be that cold either. So similar to some of the other more recent snow games you've seen, I don't think it's gonna be too big of a deal. But injury wise, still no. Obviously, he's on IR. Anthony Costanzo out, so you're probably looking at either Jared Veldheer, who came up from the practice squad and started last week, but he hasn't been called up yet from the practice squad as of Wednesday. So we'll see. I'm assuming he will, if they were willing to start him over Chaz Green, but that would be the other option. And then nothing else really relevant on the Colts side. On the Bills side as well, no one that's been declared, officially out or that I'm super concerned about according to the injury reports at this point. Again, we'll see. But run game first. So Colts offensive line, Jared Veldheer, Quentin Nelson, Ryan Kelly, Mark Lewinsky, Braden Smith. I do think, so this is why I'm going to frame this. Normally, actually, I'm not a huge fan of the Colts. I think that they're really good at beating up bad teams in a lot of ways. And I think you've seen that throughout the year that whenever they do play a good team, outside of the notable exception of the Packers game, which is going to come up a lot here, that they can struggle a little bit. But in this one, they're going to be pretty good. So, yeah, on the run game on the interior, listen, Ryan Kelly, Quentin Nelson, Mark Lewinsky, as run blockers, they're all really, really good. The guards do have some issues with losing quickly. But the problem here is that the Bills' interior defenders are not relevant run defense players. They're not going to penetrate in the backfield. They really lack ability to meaningfully impact the run game. Those being Ed Oliver, Quentin Jefferson, Vernon Butler, Harrison Phillips, and I got Justin Zimmer on here too. He's a rotational guy who I actually think could help them in this game, but they really lack strength in the interior. All of those guys struggle to hold the point of attack, especially in this scenario. They're going to push off the ball pretty frequently. We've seen that a lot with the Bills in games where they play any meaningfully good offensive line. And that definitely applies here. Now, there are going to be some flashes of penetration, especially, if there's a game for Ed Oliver to really show he was worth that pick, it's this one. They need him to show that because he's the only one. So Quentin Jefferson can do a little bit, but he's nowhere near, he's not scary. He's not going to impact the game over the course of the game. It's Ed Oliver has to. I don't think he's going to. He hasn't done it effectively ever before. But he's the one. Vernon Butler's okay too. I don't want to underrate him. It's just that it's not a good enough matchup. And then on the edges, you got AJ Epinesa, Trent Murphy, Daryl Johnson, Jerry Hughes, Mario Addison, and I put Mike Love here. He's a guy they called up from the practice squad just last week against the Dolphins. He's pretty good as a run defender. I don't think he's going to play or maybe he can get called up. I just want to mention him real quick. Versus, again, Jared Veldheer, I'm going to assume, and then Braden Smith at tackle. That also is a problem for the Bills. They really, really need to lean into Trent Murphy in this game. I know that they have something against him. They don't give him very many snaps, and he hasn't been great, don't get me wrong. But as a edge run defender, he is absolutely the best they have. AJ Epinesa has flashed a little bit, and actually kind of on course to be pretty similar players, but as of right now, they need him because Jerry Hughes, Mario Addison, not good run defenders. Jerry Hughes is okay just because he's a veteran and he knows what he's doing, but in terms of physically holding the point of attack, he's not that really there. And Mario Addison is basically the same player, just a worse version. So they need to lean into Trent Murphy in this game. I doubt they do. They haven't shown that they're willing to throughout the rest of the year, but if they don't, you're going to run into a ton of problems. And like I said, I can see it with AJ Epinesa down the road, but as of right now, he's still just not quite there as a positive edge run defender. And listen, Jared Veldheer, he's been good before in his career, and against the Dolphins, he was good last week. Now, or not the Dolphins, sorry, the Jaguars. The Jaguars aren't a great run defense, obviously. Did I say the Dolphins before too? I think I did. Yeah, obviously they were playing the Jaguars last week. Bills were playing the Dolphins. But he was pretty good last week. And actually the Jaguars have decent line of scrimmage run defenders. Past that, they get into a ton of issues. but at the line of scrimmage, and he did okay. So I just want to mention that because I think despite that, which you could argue is the place to attack, they still have an advantage there. So overall, I mean, that's a real advantage of the line of scrimmage. And at the second level, Bills linebackers, man, I like Matt Milano. I think he's pretty good. He's definitely the best on the Bills, but he is not like a super elite guy. I think he's meaningfully good and his presence matters. But Tremaine Edmonds, I mean, he's really similar to what I around a player like Jalen Smith on the Cowboys, where they have a lot of athletic ability, and I can see why people think they're good, basically, but they just don't do anything. They don't really make plays in the backfield like at any significant amount clip. If they need to fill a clear hole right in front of them, they can, which helps. Like they're not bad at all. I just as like impactful run defenders, they really lack the ability to stop runs behind the line of scrimmage, and they do lack a consistently good third guy. I have 4 guys listed here because we'll see who they give snaps to: AJ Klein, Tyler Matakevich, Andre Smith, Terrell Dodson. Presumably it's going to be AJ Klein, which is a mistake. He's not very good. He hasn't been good this year, and that would be really bad for them because they're going to need to run a lot of 3 tight end or 3 linebacker packages in this game, likely base packages, and without a third meaningfully good linebacker, that hurts them. Now they should play Terrell Dodson. That he is good as far as like a young player goes. I would argue he's better or more worth snaps than AJ Klein at this point in their respective careers. They're not going to. I just want to mention that while they're here, and that's why I wrote them there. But that's a problem for them. Now their overall run game, yeah, it's going to be good. Listen, when you give the Colts advantage at the line of scrimmage, it's going to be good. Now the upside I think is a lot more limited than it was against like the Jaguars, because the problem with the Jaguars is their pass line of scrimmage run defenders are literally the worst in the NFL. Their safeties cannot play the run in any meaningful way. Again, they played Andrew Wingard a significant amount of snaps in that game. And if you want to know how you get multiple 30-plus yard touchdowns, that's how, is you let him play in a game. Watch any game the Jaguars will play where he plays snaps, happening against the Titans, happening against the Colts. The guy can't play in the NFL, but that's the advantage for the Bills here. Their safeties are good. Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, and they actually limit the real explosive upside of the Colts run game. And Jonathan Taylor doesn't create it by himself. He's fast in a straight line. He's kind of Latavius Murray at this point. Maybe he's a little bit better, but I think if you watch them side by side on tape, there's not a lot separating them. Now I like Latavius Murray. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't think he's bad, but the point is that he doesn't create explosive plays. He needs them to be created for him. And while the chances are there because of the real advantage of the line of scrimmage, the safety's abilities to limit huge plays, as well as Trey Edmonds and Matt Milano's ability to move sideline to sideline, hurts the like real high upside of the Colts rushing attack. But down to down, they're going to be able to move the ball easily. So then we get to the pass game, which obviously the more important part. So pass rush first. This is where Valdir is more of a problem. He wasn't tested at all in the Jags game, and I do worry about a veteran making a second start in a full season after a year off or whatever. Because Jerry Hughes, Mario Addison, while I don't love either of them as individual pass rushers, they are veterans and they do know what they're doing, and that's definitely a potential source of pressure. But that's kind of it. On the interior, Mark Lewinsky super vulnerable to quick defensive tackles. So again, if Ed Oliver is what people want him to be, he can win this game single-handedly. But I really doubt he is. And it's the case with Quentin Nelson, too. Quentin Nelson obviously good at a lot of things, but once or twice, 3 times a game, he's absolutely good for losing pretty much instantly off the line of scrimmage. Just to point that out. And the point is the Colts guards are vulnerable in pass protection, like very infrequently, like compared to other teams. They're better, but that's a place you can attack them. The Bills just really like that ability. So you're talking about basically one source that's not even guaranteed, right? That's just a guess because he's playing in a second game. It's not like he was bad last week. And you're talking about pass rushers who just aren't real impactful players. So there's not a ton of pass rush, but they have a chance to. It's not going to be there. And then the receivers. So this is where things get a lot better for the Bills. But problem with that is the Colts, before I kind of talk about the specifics of this, the Colts don't really rely on the receivers getting open the outside. Now it helps. That's how they hang 40 on the Lions and on the Texans. But or not the Texans. They were the ones who hung 40 on the Texans on the Lions, and it was the Raiders, I think. But what they depend on is the middle of the field, and whether or not their tight ends and their running backs are going to be open, because that's what Phillip Rivers in this offense relies on to move the ball up and down the field. So as far as that goes, I mean, they're going to be okay. You got Mo Alley-Cox, Jack Doyle, Trey Burton, and Nyheim Hines, Jonathan Taylor. The safeties for the Bills, again, help here. The Bills safeties are really, really multi-use, good players. But are they like shut down man coverage guys? No, and that hurts, because as good as they are when they're just playing, Tampa 2 deep safeties, they can only do so much. Now, I don't love the Colts offensive weapons. I think Jack Doyle and Trey Burton are definitely the best of them. They're both actually pretty decent, but they're not like killers. The problem is that they're going to be open enough to give Phillip Rivers options. So then quick at the receiver spot, there the Colts receivers are definitely limited. Tre'Davious White's significantly better than the Colts receivers. T.Y. Hilton at this point in his career is not that great. He's been going off against like historically bad secondaries a couple weeks in a row. Do not overreact to that. He's fine. He knows what he's doing. And is it like, I'm not going to rule him out as being a useful. In fact, I would bet that he's a useful part of their game plan. But is he a play driving receiver? Absolutely not. And Tre'Davious White can shut him down at this point in their respective careers, literally no question. But on the other side, Josh Norman, he's played pretty decent since he's been here in Buffalo, but he's not crazy. And Michael Pittman Jr. has actually shown enough ability that I think he could be useful too. So when you get to I think just as far as overall receiving options, while there's nothing that like indicates like, wow, that's a really positive matchup at any point, there's more than enough where any given play, Phillip Rivers in a fairly clean pocket is going to find somebody who's going to be sitting in space. So then you get to the quarterback. Yeah, again, Phillip Rivers, you can say what you want about him, but he is smart. He knows what he's doing, and he's played against these types of fairly soft, simple zone coverage schemes that the Bills run 1,000 times, and he can move the ball in them. And here, that doesn't change. There's nothing on the Bills. There's no advantage that they can press to cause the Colts to fail offensively, outside of Phillip Rivers. I don't know. He kind of fucks stuff up sometimes still, but there's not enough pass rush, and their coverage just isn't good enough in the areas that matter versus this offense. So the one thing I will point out though is Phillip Rivers does get really dangerous when he plays against good safeties, because his arm strength is so gone at this point. When he looks to throw the ball down the field, if you have smart defenders who can react to balls, they can be really, really, really dangerous to Phillip Rivers in terms of interceptions. And the Bills have 2 of those, both of their safeties, which is a huge bonus. And again, that really limits the upside of the Colts offense. So that's why, overall, I have the Colts scoring, where did I write it here? 26-34. That is a lot. But we've seen the Colts' upside for their offense is much higher than that, and I do think that's absolutely on the high side. It's just that you have Phillip Rivers moving the ball up and down the field consistently without real limiting factors, and the Colts have shown that between Frank Reich and their offensive weapons, they can do pretty well in the red zone. And once they get to the red zone, their ability to just blow the Bills off the line of scrimmage most of the time, that creates a floor of being able to score touchdowns that it's hard to really bet against. So yeah, I had them at 26-34, and while that is a little bit on the high side, I don't really see how it doesn't happen, to be honest with you. In terms of offense versus defense, this game is similar to like when they played the Packers. And there's definitely advantages to press. And now the Bills offense and the Colts defense. This is the fun one. So injury-wise first for this, we got Cole Beasley out, very likely. Not yet to the point with official injury designations when I'm making this video, but it's like concussion issues. He hasn't played in a little bit. He hasn't practiced this week. I don't think he's going to play. DeForest Buckner hasn't practiced also. There's no way he doesn't play in this game. Rocky Sen, starting corner, questionable. Maybe better for the Colts if he doesn't suit up, but also got to mention that. So first run game. Not going to spend as much time on this part because this is a fucking disaster for the Bills. They are not going to be able to run the ball to save their lives. Their offensive line, Deion Dawkins, Ike Bacher, Mitch Morse, John Feliciano, Darrell Williams. way better in pass protection than they are uh, at the line of scrimmage in the run game, and the Colts front seven is maybe probably the best in the NFL's. They're up there. They do miss some important features that I'll get into later, but in this matchup, as far as run defense goes, they'd be dominant. DeForest Buckner is made for this. As a run defender, he's going to dominate the guards consistently. Grover Stewart is a legit nose tackle if you're not familiar with him. Denico Autry, one of the best edge run defenders in the league. Justin Houston's still good at his age. And Al-Qadim Muhammad, I want to mention too. He rotates in. He's also a fantastic edge run defender. But yeah, the Bills effectively have no advantages. Now they're used to that. They suck at running the ball the vast majority of the time anyway. But then once you get to the second level, again, Colts linebackers, absolutely elite, really, really good. All three of them, Bobby Okereke, Darius Leonard, Anthony Walker. And the Bills don't do anything special to create yards in the run game. They're actually pretty mediocre in terms of run scheme. And their offensive lineman, Mitch Morse, in certain matchups can get downfield a little bit. And Darrell Williams can push some weaker edges, but not the case here. So, yeah, they're not going to be able to run the ball, which is going to hurt them keeping a lead in the second half of this game if they have one. So, want to get that out of the way quick. Now we get the pass game. This is the much more interesting part. So, first pass rush wise. Actually, to start on the edges here, this is a positive for the Bills. So Justin Houston, still a reasonable edge rusher for sure. Maybe probably a little better than that. He's not dominant though. He's not what he used to be. He's not T.J. Watt. He's not a sole driver of true pressure, especially against these tackles who are both pretty good. And then the other edge, Denico Autry, Al-Qadim Muhammad, I'll lock them up in run defense all day, but as pass rushers, they try hard. They get, they're not awful, but again, they don't cause pressure. They're the beneficiaries of other people doing so, which brings me to the interior. So, DeForest Buckner. So I'll gas him up like I said with the other guys in run defense for sure. He's really good, but as a pass rusher, I think he gets really overrated. Now, is he still like a top 10 interior guy as a pass rusher? Probably. But is he like on the level? Because obviously he's not on the level of Aaron Donald. It's a given. But is he even in the second with like Chris Jones or Grady Jarrett? Absolutely not. If you watch him on a snap-to-snap basis, absolutely not. Now, he's not nothing for sure. And again, this matchup is super positive for him. Ike Bacher and John Feliciano, especially Bacher. Hence why I listed winner series. I think it's a chance he does so bad that they rotate those guys. But Buckner is not enough solo, and you've seen that in other Colts games this year, like when they played the Titans, but multiple times. And that had some other contributing factors, but he's not enough to generate pass rush by himself, and he kind of has to be in this game. Now, is it like nothing? No, but is it enough to like make me worried if I'm a Bills fan? Not at all. So then you talk about the receivers, and again, I've talked about this every time I talked about the Bills. It's really hard to understate how unbelievably good Stephon Diggs is. He will be open every play of this game. He is effectively every game. And here, the matchup against the Colts Corners is god awful for the Colts. So they play right. So they run a pretty simple zone scheme, actually pretty similar to what the Bills do on the other side of the ball. But they do it with these two big press corners with Xavier Rhodes and Rocky Sin, which normally helps with jamming guys off the line of scrimmage so that their rush can get there before the quarterback processes a real opening. Problem here is that is unfeasible, untenable. You cannot try to press Stephon Diggs and John Brown too, who was also really, really good in his own right with Xavier Rhodes and Rocky Sin, especially Rocky Sin. They cannot do it. They will lose this game if they try that. So that's a real issue for them. Now, Xavier Rhodes is still good and a veteran, and I'll mention TJ Carey, if he plays too, is a better matchup. Now, he's a worse corner, so it's not exactly a positive, but just to mention that. And Kenny Moore, the Colts slot corner, is fantastic. Is that super useful in this case? Not necessarily. Now, it's always useful to have a good defender on the field, but it's not like it is against some other teams. And I'll also mention with the Bills receivers, Gabriel Davis, one of the better rookie receivers of the year, for sure. He's really good. He just gets overshadowed, obviously, by Diggs. And then Isaiah McKenzie, more of a gadget player, a useful one. They use him well, and he's not nothing as a receiver. We saw, he had a good separation on the touchdown he caught last week against the Dolphins, but he's not like, I'm not gonna go crazy on him. But and then Dawson Knox is bad. He's a bad tight end, but most tight ends are. And can he, if he's open 10 yards on the field, can he catch the ball? Yes, and that's all you need when surrounded by the rest of these guys. So their receivers again are going to be dominant open, and they both, John Brown and Stephon Diggs, they're veterans. They're smart. They know what they're doing. They know how to adjust routes to zone coverage. So it's not like a player like Calvin Ridley or Curtis Samuel would be an example of someone who is not great at that and can be limited against a scheme like this. Not the case here. So yeah, it's ugly. Then you talk about Josh Allen. So this is a really interesting case for Josh Allen because the Colts, right? They're really good as a defense because they kind of played a lot of bad offensive teams, but also because they are actively good at limiting short things. They fly around to the ball. They react to the ball really well. They have good underneath defenders between their linebackers and pass coverage. Kenny Moore, like I said, and they can really prevent teams that need to move down the field methodically. That is the most opposite description from the Bills as you could possibly give. Because what the Colts are good at, Josh Allen, he just doesn't even target that part of the field most of the time, right? He's either throwing way farther down the field, or he's moving around in the pocket, giving time for the zone to turn into the matchup part of the zone where eventually they have to cover somebody man to man. In which case, the advantages of it are taken away, and without the pass rush being able to get there quick enough, Josh Allen, he's gonna be really good in this game. Now, he's still not perfect in zone coverage, and it's not like the pass rush is nothing. So there will be drives here where he can miss things and he can cause the drive to stall, which is the case, has been the case with him all year. Now we've seen it doesn't really hurt him too much, but that is a little bit of a danger I'll mention. But yeah, Josh Allen's gonna be really good in this game again, and also the Colts safeties. You have to mention them when you're talking about the Bills. So their strong safety spot, or one of their safety spots, either going to be Tavon Wilson or Kari Willis if he's back from injury. I'm assuming he will be. I'm not actually positive about that one. Either way, that is not a real positive for the Colts now. Neither of those guys are bad at all. But the problem with not bad is against the Bills, you need a whole lot better. Which brings you to their other spot. So Julian Blackmon, he definitely been one of the better defensive rookies of the year, for sure, no question. But one of the better rookies of the year does not equal the level you need, again, to actually meaningfully prevent the Bills from doing things down the field. I mean, you have to be crazy. Like, look at what happened. I think there's a ton of similarities, offense versus defense, in this game, as there were, or like there were, when the Bills played the Broncos a couple weeks ago. And result of that, the Bills put up like 50. Now, the Colts are better, for sure. Well, I say for sure. Actually, they're better as a complete unit, but in the areas that matter against the Bills, maybe not so much, because the Broncos ran out Justin Simmons, who's a significantly better safety than what the Colts have. Their corners, while significantly worse, actually in the matchup are not really meaningfully different, because with the Broncos they were bad because they were inexperienced rookies. With the Colts they're bad because they're big, long, kind of unathletic. I mean, they're athletic, in different ways, but non-agile press corners on the outside versus Stephon Diggs and John Brown, who are just going to run around them constantly. Like, it's a similar difference. The reason is different, but it creates the same effect. And their pass rush is the Broncos are dependent on Shelby Harris on the interior. The Colts are dependent on DeForest Buckner on the interior. And I think actually as pass rushers, those guys are really similar. Shelby Harris might even be a little bit better. So there's a ton of similarities. And again, we saw it now. I don't expect that level because that was aided by Drew Lock being terrible and gifting points to the Bills too. So I'm not going to go that crazy like what happened in that game. But the Bills, yeah, they're not going to be stopped here. But this is about as bad of a matchup as you can give them, because there are still issues. Like I said, there are chances that Josh Allen will stall drives by himself at various points. Without Cole Beasley, they do a little bit lack a middle of the field receiver is going to consistently find space. Now, I think Gabriel Davis and Stephon Diggs out of the slot can still do enough there, but that does hurt them. But yeah, overall, I end up having them at 28 to 35 points. So I think they're going to be really good. Now, notice though, I had the Colts at 26 to 34. So I think this game's going to be really close. Which brings me to the betting. So the line in this is the Colts are 7-point underdogs on the road, and the over under set at 51.5. I will be super super strong in the Colts +7. I so basically the reason is I think these teams effectively have an equal chance of winning the game. Despite me thinking that the Bills are a much better team, I really like the Bills. It's just this matchup is, like I said, is about as bad as you can get for the way the Bills play football. So I think they both have about an equal chance of winning the game. Which, if you're giving one team 7 extra points, I mean, yeah, it's just a really, really, really positive bet. The over under 51.5. Again, neither of these defenses have a whole lot of a prayer stopping the offenses. They just have to hope the weather's bad or they settle for a bunch of field goals, which is the one notable problem with here is that the Bills, without being able to run the ball, that can hurt the red zone floor of a team. And the Colts, with Phillip Rivers quarterback, that can hurt the red zone floor of a team. So that is the one chance that both teams settle for field goals, but both teams are going to move the ball up and down the field very consistently. So, yeah, I have a very strong Colts +7. Okay, bettable, the over, and weekly, but this is my pick. I will be picking the Bills to win this game. Basically, it comes down to the Bills' offensive advantages in the fourth quarter are generally going to be a lot more useful for quickly scoring when they need to than the Colts are. And I think that's what this comes down to. It comes down to a last possession thing. So, yeah, Bills to win the game very lightly, but Colts +7. I mean, that line is ridiculous. And then over 51.5. And that is the first of the playoff games. Colts Bills.